Live from News Channel 8 in Tampa, Florida, this is Bucs Bonus on WFLA Now. Powered by 1-800-ASK-GARY.
The Buccaneers, unrecognizable, flopping against the very beatable Browns, but at the mercy of the football gods, somehow remain in first place in the abysmal NFC South with the Saints up next in a Monday Night Football matchup. How do the Buccaneers turn their frown upside down? We smile, right? We just try to
right
smile
on cue. I was like,
here, the three of us. JB Biunno, Dan Lucas, and Karen Loftus. Dan and Karen, of course, your Bucs insiders here on Bucs Bonus, powered by 1-800-ASK-GARY. Welcome back to the Stream Center as we look here at your Week 12 recap. The Buccaneers losing by 6 to the Cleveland Browns in their final game without Deshaun Watson, losing to Jacoby Brissett and the Cleveland Browns in Cleveland. A whole lot of wrong, not a whole lot of right, but let's start with everything that went wrong, Dan and Karen. What is the biggest takeaway as far as the reason that the Buccaneers flopped in Week 12 in a game that they likely, look, you look at the calendar, that's a game you have to win. You should be winning that game.
Well, there's two things, and there's the one everyone's talking about, and it's how the game ended, regulation, how it ended, where you essentially didn't give your team a chance to get to maybe a game-winning field goal attempt, a long one at that. If it doesn't go in, you go to overtime. You had 3 timeouts in your pocket, and as we know, the Bucs only used one of them, and that was when there was 8 seconds left on the clock. They started a drive with 37? 32,
I believe.
And 15 or so seconds run off the clock after the first play went nowhere. Yep. That's one way to go about it. That's for sure.
It was the part that everybody had scratching their heads, and Bob and I were in here, and we were like, were we missing something?
Yeah.
That was sort of the reaction. It was like, you sort of assumed that they were going to call a timeout with that many. And
I was watching the game and I thought, listen, I've played 0 plays in the NFL.
Same.
I've played 0 play. I played 0 plays in high school.
I've coached
and
0.
I thought, but I've watched a lot of football, and I'm like, I do recall teams moving down the field quickly, using their timeouts, spiking the ball when you have to, and this just doesn't look right. And all of a sudden, Tom Brady throws a long pass to Julio Jones, was it 26 yards or something, and you're thinking, what? They're now 2 plays away from getting suck up on the field for a field goal attempt. Oh, by the way, the clock just ran out, and you have 2 timeouts that are going into infinity. That was bizarre.
Yeah, and that's a good word. And that's why I'm sort of like, I was sort of at a loss. And you're just like, okay. And then you're like, okay, well, maybe they were playing for overtime, I think is what Coach Bowles said. He said it.
Yeah, in the end, yes.
He's like, if we didn't get a first down or something, they weren't going to call a timeout. Or is that what he said on Monday? He said they had a plan going ahead.
He said on Sunday that clock was going to run down anyways. He said on Monday that the clock was going to run down anyways. And why risk throwing an interception, putting the Browns in a prime short field situation for their own game-winning field goal attempt? There's logic there, but you have Tom Brady as your quarterback, who has thrown 2 picks all year out of 400 and some pass attempts, and then the pass that he did complete on that final drive was a very difficult throw between defenders to Julio Jones. I'm presuming that was a risk of an interception as well. It turned out being a heck of a play.
Yeah.
So it just didn't make sense. Now, I talked to Todd Bowles on Monday. We sit down with him, and I asked him the same question, of course, and he seemed convinced that they were going to go to overtime. Todd Bowles, when you're a head coach, you do what you do, and then you own it, and he owned it. Now, it sounded like he was doubling down on it on Monday, but he owned it. If he comes back and he says, you know what, I made a mistake, I think, and this is my own opinion, that is so detrimental to your locker room. Mm-hmm. If you come out, even if he in his heart feels like, I really messed that one up, guys. You cannot go in front of the microphones and say that after you've gone on after the game and said, no, this is what we were thinking, because now you're in danger of losing your room. And this was a gut punch loss to Bucs players, Bucs fans, obviously. But Bucs players got on that plane ride home. That was a sick feeling. Sick. After you got to 5-5, a 2-game win streak, get to your bye week, you're getting a little healthier. You look at your schedule. Maybe we can go on a little run now, and you go do that. That's just you. I felt for the players, to be honest.
And I think one of it, the big thing was that what Tom Brady was saying afterwards. Got to score more points. I mean, you look at this game.
We've been saying this on this program all year long.
Well, I said there was two things that went wrong.
That was the other one? It's like I read your mind.
The other one, in the third quarter, the Bucs come out. They score to go up 17-10. And the next possession, Cleveland comes out, and they look awful. The Bucs defense shuts the door. Multiple plays.
Quarterback sacks
Yes,
in a stretch.
Quarterback sacks. Yeah. Cleveland's going backwards. They punt back to the Bucs. And at that point, I'm watching the game, and I'm thinking, whoo, this is it. Blowout is on. I thought the blowout was on. I thought it was going to be 24-10, and it was just going to go south from there. But it never happened. And that's where Tom Brady's coming from.
Absolutely.
Head scratching.
Yeah, because you're looking at the defense, knowing that they're doing enough, to hold a team to 10 points for the game.
Read the drive.
For the majority of the game.
The drive charts after that Bucs touchdown, the Browns had the ball. I'm going to say their next two possessions were short drives. One was a 3-and-out, but they had the ball almost 4 minutes, both of those times. The Browns, for whatever reason, the clock ran down. The Browns went nowhere, and the Bucs got the ball back and went 3-and-out in 25 seconds.
Right. And even if you just think about like getting a field goal, like something, so it's not like you're coming down to the game where it's just like
one score.
Just a one-score game. There was no like breathing room. There was no just I don't know, just the finish them off mentality. Let
me ask you this question, because I know we do want to get ahead to the Saints and look forward to this Monday Night Football matchup on ESPN. One thing I want to ask the two of you. If you look at this Bucs roster season to season, there's been some consistency over the last 3 years. There's been really the same core. I mean, this season, okay, you lose players like Ndamukong Suh, Ryan Jensen to injury, of course, which is brutal. You lose Rob Gronkowski, which people, of course, have made a tremendous note of and pointed to that over and over and over again. But the biggest difference this season, to many, is the difference of Bruce Arians. Not being on the sidelines and it being Todd Bowles calling plays. Now with this timeout debacle, I'm going to ask the two of you, is the seat at least a little lukewarm as far as the coaching staff for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going ahead and looking forward?
I feel like that's a good question. It's like in my head, no. But that's like me personally, because I'm like, I wouldn't fire a coach.
You guys cover this team every single day. You guys know. So I'm just curious as to what you're hearing.
I feel like there's so many more factors involved than just trying to find a scapegoat, which I know is sort of the popular thing to do. Like, let's find one person and blame it. Yeah. But I see it as a bigger thing where it's pieces here and there, different games, different problems.
But doesn't that all fall under coaching in the end, though?
But at the end of the day, I see it as the coach isn't executing out on the field.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Dan?
Well, the MO of the Glazers is to not make, move. I won't say a rash move, but sudden moves. They don't do it. In the past, let's just say decade, because they've gone through so many head coaches in a decade. It's always taken place after the final game of the regular season. And I can tell you this, right now overseas, they have bigger fish to fry with their soccer team. It's in complete limbo with the whole Ronaldo thing. So Joel Glazer spent a chunk of time actually in England trying to figure that out during the Bucs bye week. So they're occupied, but I can't think that the ownership sat and watched that game the other day and was fine with the final drive.
Sure.
They're just like, they watch football too. It was bizarre. Have I said that yet?
I think you said it a couple times.
I would say we've gone through is Byron Leftwich in trouble scenario, and that's quieted down a little bit until now. And now we introduce Todd Bowles into that equation, and I personally don't see any changes on the horizon because it's not
in-season change.
Definitely not.
Absolutely not.
Definitely not an in-season change for sure, but the thing is, the NFC South right now is so bad that it's winnable. It might be winnable at 8-9,
which is crazy.
And so it's not over. And when they get to the end, they're going to play Atlanta in the end, and that darn well might be a championship game for the NFC South. And that's the only team that's getting into the playoffs from the division. the Glazers would assess where they are after that. I still think they win the division. After all this doom and gloom, I think they win the division. So that would definitely keep people off the hot seat.
I like the optimism.
I'm an eternal optimist.
There you go.
Always.
That's the type of energy we need on this program
Always.
right now, because it's not as all hunky dory in Bucs land right now. I've mentioned it before in previous episodes of this program. I think just maybe once, very, very briefly. I'm going to quiz you both. Do you know who my favorite Buccaneer is? My favorite player on the roster, and it's
Current?
not. Yes, I'm just a massive fan of this guy. I think I mentioned it once briefly.
Would it give it away if you gave us the position group?
Well, I'm going to give it away to our audience here because this is my favorite player. And it's not even close.
Well, you're really mad about overtime.
I love Tristan Wirfs.
He's a great human.
Yes.
Wonderful guy.
On and off the field, the way that he goes about his business, he's my favorite Buck. And so to see him go down and to see they wouldn't even show the replay on the broadcast because apparently it was not pretty.
Right.
But of course, with the defender flying through the air, landing on his leg, it does not look good. What's the latest that we are hearing on Tristan Wirfs? Not an injury we need as we head into the stretch run to try to win the NFC South.
Well, yeah. Well, long term, not as bad as we thought. Short term, they're going to miss him.
Big time.
And so he escaped all the initials, right? ACL, MCL, all that. He escaped that. Escaped fractures. High ankle sprain is the result. And anyone who's dealt with an ankle sprain knows that a high ankle sprain is the bad one. Mm-hmm. The low traditional ankle sprain. Oh, I turned my ankle on a sidewalk or something. You get through that. High ankle sprain sometimes is worse than a fracture. Fracture, 6 weeks, boot, you're out, ready to go. High ankle sprains linger, ligament structural damage perhaps. But the Bucs are saying it's a pain tolerance thing.
Wow.
So definitely not this week against the Saints. But the initial prognosis was, 3 to 4 weeks?
Several weeks,
Okay, so 3 to 4 weeks minimum, which gets us past Christmas. And there's only 2 games after that. So this is critical. This is a critical injury.
Yeah. Especially when you're talking about what we've been talking about, them scoring points. And
yeah,
I mean, at the root of that is the protection on Tom Brady. And if
do you think
he's like their best offensive lineman?
You could argue he's their best offensive player just altogether.
I was going to ask Karen.
He's so rock solid.
I have been told he's probably the best offensive lineman in the league.
Yeah.
There's definitely talk of him in the top tier.
I mean, just dominant.
Absolutely.
Right.
Like, nobody gets past him. Nobody beats him one-on-one.
Absolutely. So, it's. I'm going to stop short of saying devastating because we don't know. Josh Wells will probably be the first guy to step in who's got experience, who I believe stepped in for him in the playoff game against the Rams.
Yep.
Josh Wells is pretty good. Josh Wells knows the offense. Mm-hmm. He's been around. He's a veteran. You're not pulling a guy off the street to replace Tristan Wirfs. The problem is you're trying to replace Tristan Wirfs. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Honestly, if you looked at this offensive line in the summer and you said, okay, who are the 2 offensive linemen you cannot afford to lose? Ryan Jensen, Tristan Wirfs.
Yes,
that's it.
Right.
They're not playing right now.
And on Jensen, any update as to when he becomes back and available? I mean, we had heard the back end of the season. We're not there yet. So
best
is there
case.
Right?
Yeah,
that was best
I got to
case.
think it's even. Yeah, I got to think we're still weeks away.
Yeah.
Weeks away.
So it's not as if that he's a return is imminent. So
no.
Let's also look at some other injuries as well. I have in my notebook Leonard Fournette and Antoine Winfield are some other injuries that we're watching on our Bucs bonus injury watch. Let's start with Fournette. What's the prognosis currently with Lenny?
Looking good, yes?
Yeah, we don't have an injury report this week because it's pushed back. So I believe first injury report will be tomorrow.
Thursday,
correct?
Correct. On Monday, Todd Bowles was very encouraged by Leonard Fournette's progress. And, he was downgraded on Saturday. He was doubtful last Friday. So the Bucs fly to Cleveland. Then Saturday they said, no, he's out.
Right.
That's kind of reminiscent of the Akeem Hicks when they played the Baltimore game. Akeem Hicks was right there. He's out. So that's where Leonard Fournette was. Mm-hmm. I have a feeling he's on the field this week.
And
you would think so.
You get him some carries, and you could line him up behind Rachaad White, who's looked pretty good for a rookie, right?
He's been great.
Yeah, but I think Rachaad White, who in my opinion takes this position over at some point, but Rachaad White's better with Leonard Fournette, and vice versa.
Yeah,
because Rachaad White I thought it looked very good against Cleveland, and then it went nowhere. The run was when the Bucs were trying to eat up the clock. What were they doing? They were running. They couldn't run. So
Leonard Fournette's just a game changer. He's somebody that makes or breaks that offense.
Two guys who will hit that first and second level and just bruise people and accomplish what you want to accomplish.
Yes. We've seen it many, many times, the physicality with which Leonard Fournette plays. By third, fourth quarter, those defensive guys don't want it.
I'll tell you what, when the holidays and January rolls around, we get into playoff football, if we're talking playoff football, and of course that's assuming that the Bucs can win the division. I like a thunder and lightning kind of duo between Lenny Fournette and Rachaad White running the football.
Rashaad's got a little thunder too. You saw that stiff arm.
Yeah, that stiff arm was pretty. I'm not going to use the word. I'm going to get in trouble. But Rachaad White can bring the boom too. So I like them as a two-headed monster.
Well, think about this, JB. You just hit the nail on the head. Playoffs in January. So the Bucs, they would be the 4th seed. So they would play at home.
Yep.
Right now, I think they're slated to play Dallas. So they would play Dallas at home. They win. Let's say they win. So now you're the lowest seed left. You're playing at Philly in the divisional round.
Wow.
Cold. Philly.
I was just Philly.
One of the best teams right
Eagles,
now. You gotta have a running game. You must. It is a must.
Yeah, the Eagles got it this year.
Oh,
they do.
Yes, they're scary.
And that could be a sign of things to come. Really quickly before we move on, we're going to open up the call lines here in a second. But before we do, Antoine Winfield, your heart breaks for him because we were getting excited about seeing him in the backfield again or in the secondary, and now he's injured again. What's the deal with Antoine? Well,
a number of defensive backs went down with various ailments, came back into the game Sunday. Carlton Davis, Jamel Dean, and of course Antoine Winfield had to go be examined for a concussion.
Yeah, he came back second half.
But he did come back into the game, so that's a positive sign. However, moving forward, you got to be cautious. You got to be cautious with him. The concussion topic is right back into the crosshairs as it should be, and so for him to even have some type of nick in Cleveland that caused him to have to go into the tent and be examined is alarming when it comes to concussion, because after it's the whole second impact type situation that they're trying to avoid. So you got to be cautious with him. But the fact that he came back into the game is very...
That too, and then, so Antoine Winfield, we've talked about how key he is as a communicator, and just everywhere. A positive, though, on the injury note is that Logan Ryan was reinstated to return from the injured reserve. So he's in that 21-day window where he can come back.
Yep. Veteran safety.
So having him in the mix now is something
certainly helps.
Yeah, so again, eternal optimist. Let's talk about the injuries. Let's talk about the guys coming back. So just to add that to the mix, if you're talking about defensive backs and their health.
Karen bringing the optimism. I love it. I mentioned this to you before the program. Yeah, for the first time on Bucs Bonus, we're going to open up the phone lines.
Okay.
We're going to open up the phone lines.
Wow.
And we're going to take callers. And as I understand it, the producer in my ear is telling me that we have a caller on the line. Are you ready? Are we ready? Are we ready to take a phone call?
Let's do it.
Let's see who it is.
Hey JB, this is Bucka Firebird. Yeah, and I want to talk to you about last week. Yeah, we lost the game, but at the same time, we had some exciting things happen. The Saints lost, and we also had Atlanta Falcons lost. As a result, the Buccaneers are still #1, and so it don't matter what happened in Cleveland. That's over. We're going to proceed into next week. I promise you, the Buccaneers going to take it to the Saints. We want to take care of business in the division in order to get to the playoff. So we got to beat the Saints. There's going to be no competition at all. They have a controversy with quarterback. We have to go. So this week, come Monday night, football for the whole world to see, we will whoop the Saints at Raymond James Stadium.
Man, can we give it up for Bucka-Fied Bird?
Bucka-Fied Bird.
That's just, wow.
Welcome to the show.
Is that your man cave? Are you at work?
I think that was the chateau.
I thought Karen was an optimist.
Man.
Buckify Bert.
I know.
Times
I just got
10.
Yeah.
So for
Yeah,
our
got it.
listeners, that is Buckified Bert, who is not only a mainstay at Raymond James Stadium and someone you will frequently see on the Jumbotron, but also, of course, an employee at WFLA News Channel 8, your official Bucs station. So Buckified had the opportunity to call into the program, and he, of course, he's not going to pass that up. So to what Buckified was talking about, yeah, all right, losing to the Browns is brutal, but yeah, he brought up a great point. The Saints lose last week. The Falcons lose last week. And somehow, this is straight comedy. The Buccaneers lose to the Browns and still are in first heading into this Monday Night Football matchup against the
Cats'
Saints.
9 lives are being used up here.
Dan,
incredible.
can you give me some logic that makes sense as to how this team is in first right now?
Well, it's been done before. It was done, I think the last team to do it was the Seattle Seahawks. They won the NFC West with a losing record. And I read somewhere it's been done 4 or 5 times, and the bulk of those teams that won their division ended up winning their wild card game. So they got a win, and one win in the postseason, and then, of course, we're knocked out in the divisional round, but that's why you get in, right? You can't win unless you get into the dance. So the NFC South, 1 playoff spot available. The next 3 best records in the NFC will be your 3 wild cards. The NFC South is obviously nowhere near that. So that's it. You got to win the division or you're out. And I think it's really come down to, even though I believe 3 teams are still in it, with Carolina, are they still in it, I think?
As
I
a
got to
wild
look
card?
at the standings.
I think everyone's in it.
As
Because
the
they're all in
division-
the
as
basement
the
together.
division
Oh,
champion.
yeah.
It's the Bucs and the Falcons. And you know what's unfortunate about that? As you mentioned, the Falcons lose, so no harm done, right? But I mean, you could have been 2 games up.
Yeah. Missed
2
opportunity.
games up. And this week you've got the Saints coming in, which is worth 2 games because it's a division opponent. So you could bury the Saints and keep the pressure on Atlanta with a win this week. But, yeah, that's a blown opportunity. And the schedule, JB, gets brutal
From this point forward.
after this one. Well, they get San Francisco,
Away.
the Bengals,
Yep.
who have picked up their game substantially.
Getting Jamar Chase back.
Yeah,
too.
and then
Yep.
it's a toss-up, I think, on the road on Christmas night, Arizona Cardinals. I don't know how that could go.
We've been saying for weeks that it was going to come down to the final game against the Falcons. And look, it is shaping up that way. But Karen, also too, you're looking at this 4-8 Saints team.
Yeah.
And they're thinking playoffs, because if they get on a run somehow, some way, and the Falcons and Bucs continue to meander through these games, especially with the Bucs' tough schedule, as Dan is mentioning, the Saints all of a sudden have playoff hopes as NFC South Division champions.
Yeah, I mean, it's wide open. I mean, today, co-defensive coordinator Larry Foote was saying, you know, I've told my guys, this is a golden opportunity.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're in another division and you have this record, you're like, well, I don't know what we're going to do.
Yeah.
But in this situation, you're like, okay, our goals are still alive. You know, we can still win the division. This is great. So that's where your singular focus is. It's let's just keep after it and then get to the playoffs and then come what may.
I think 9 losses is the cutoff. I don't think you can sustain more than 9 losses.
So
and
you're
win this
saying
division.
that the Saints would have to win out?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
What do they have? How many? 8 losses?
Yeah, they're 4-8.
All right, so they can afford one more by what I'm saying.
Right, that's right.
To get to 8 and 9, that's 3-3 for the Bucs down the stretch. So, I mean, that's attainable.
Also, too, for the Saints, we'll get into our key storylines here on your screen in just a moment.
Yeah.
But with the Saints, I mean, their season did not go according to plan. It's been Andy Dalton, starting for the Saints these past few weeks.
But that's been
Totally
really
weird.
strange, that situation, and having Jameis try and fight for his job, and Andy Dalton, who I've been watching a little bit of the Saints, and like one week Andy Dalton looks like the answer. And then there's games where it's like, why are you putting this guy out there?
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on in New Orleans.
Yeah, they've had a tough go of it for sure. I mean,
Right.
the big thing, Alvin Kamara is coming back.
Yeah.
Well, he's going to be playing this meeting,
Right,
rather.
yep.
So, because he was out the first meeting with the Bucs.
And he's a force. He's a
Yeah, he is.
game-changing player.
Him and Ingram, and then They don't have Mike Thomas anymore, though.
No, but Chris Olave has
they got
really...
Olave, they got Jarvis.
Come on. Wonderful player, Olave.
Yeah.
And also the Swiss Army knife that is Taysom Hill, who for whatever reason will occasionally just have, explosion performances. And we hope it's not this week as we look here at your Week 13 preview on Bucs Bonus, powered by 1-800-ASK-GARY. Again, here with Bucs insiders Dan Lucas and Karen Loftus on WFLA Now. Of course, WFLA, your official Bucs station. The Buccaneers kick off on Monday Night Football, 8:15 Eastern Time at Raymond James Stadium. As of right now, as of this recording, they open as a 3.5-point favorite at home against the divisional opponent Saints. We look here at your key storylines on your screen, and the top one, putting the timeout debacle in the rear view mirror. How do we forget about the timeout debacle? I mean, really, does it come down to just executing from a coaching perspective and time management?
I think it's
clock management.
It's just a matter now of reminding themselves that just don't even have to be in that position to be, the team that's trying to chase at all, and just put it away. Put it away. Get your lead. Maybe you hang on for dear life at the end of the game, but just to not be in that position. It's a luxury in the first half. When you know you're going to be the team with the ball last in the second quarter before halftime, and you're in the exact same situation, I think you're just a little more free with your decision making, as opposed to the end of the game where it has a finality to it. I understand the risk. I understand it. But I just feel like, number 12 is throwing the football. Number 12 will throw the football to row 10 of the seats if he has to. He's not going to take that. You're not going to give up the ball in that danger zone.
I just think, again, going back to how you started your answer, it's crazy how many problems are solved by just getting an early lead and getting a lead by a lot of points. Like, that's just solves so much.
Make the other team deal with the timeout issue.
It just gives you so much more flexibility in your play calling, everything. And yes.
So just getting a lead,
a healthy one,
is how you put the timeout debacle in the rearview mirror. Get a lead, hold on to that lead. But that brings us to our second storyline, finishing the game. Second half, fourth quarter execution on both sides of the football, because the Buccaneers have found ways in recent weeks on both sides of the football to lose games, whether it's the offense or the defense. So what is that getting into their heads? Is it a mental thing at this point?
Can be. It can be. I mean, against the Seahawks, it wasn't. Seahawks, They were tremendous to finish the game. If Carlton Davis doesn't slip,
you took the words right out of my mouth.
On the big pass play that the Browns hit that put them down in the position to tie the game. Are we even having this conversation?
No, and that goes back to the margin of error.
Right.
Like, if you're up by just two scores, your margin of error gets a little bit bigger.
You can afford that
now
slip.
There's no room for error. You cannot slip on a play. And no fault to him, because that just happens. But if you have a bigger lead,
a microcosm.
It's not being magnified.
Yeah. A microcosm of it. I'm getting chills from we're on the heels of the U.S. men's national team winning, and advancing to the knockout stage.
In the last 20 minutes of the game.
But only having that one goal lead and having the nerves. That's what the Buccaneers are experiencing with these close games and really relinquishing leads in the second half and fourth quarter of football games. So it's about, lead. Hold the lead. How about building a lead?
I'm just going to answer that for every single one of these.
Right.
It actually could answer every single one of these.
How about, I will take your concept a step further. How about a 3-score cushion? Can we do that against the Saints at home?
Yeah.
Can we get a little greedy?
That Seattle game was the textbook way the Bucs are going to win games. Textbook. Take control early with your defense. Get them out of their game. Score points on offense. And then at the end of the game, the game will develop how it develops. And in that game, the Bucs won by 1 score, playing very good defense down the stretch. And what? Running the football at the end, getting a critical first down to end it. Rashad White sliding inbounds to keep the clock running.
So smart. I know we're going back a couple games, but that play was major.
It's this, we feel like it's the end of the world, and we have an example that's fresh of how the Bucs can do it. That's what they have to do.
Yeah.
I will pivot now as we have a few more minutes here on Bucs Bonus. We'll pivot to the final storyline. Oh, yeah. Grab your popcorn. Mike Evans and Marshon Lattimore meeting again. And as a quick reminder, in their first matchup of the season, of course, the two of them getting into a massive brawl in New Orleans, reminiscent of Bourbon Street. And, of course, that leading to a one-game suspension for Mike Evans. What do we expect for the encore? You know, I was just having some fun. I wanted to like look it up again, and I just Google searched Evans Lattimore, and all it is YouTube highlight clips of not even just this season, just their many brawls going back for years.
It's a blast.
Catching hands all over the place.
This is Tyson Holyfield. This is Pacquiao Mayweather. This is whatever you want to call it. This is two heavyweights going in there for another very familiar matchup. What do we expect on Monday Night Football?
I expect Lattimore to get in Evans' face. That's what I expect. And we're going to test, and it's going to test Evans' moxie, resilience, or his behavior, whatever you want to put a word on it.
Self-control.
I think, Mike Evans acknowledged the suspension, acknowledged hurting his team. And that's what I needed to hear after that incident in New Orleans. But these guys go way back. And if I'm Lattimore, if I'm Marshon, I'm getting right in Evans' face immediately Monday night.
Wow.
Because the referees are going to be looking for it.
They're looking for it. Yeah, exactly.
Now, if you're from a coaching perspective, if you're Byron Leftwich, if you're Todd Bowles, are you talking to Mike Evans to say, hey, look, last time it cost us a game. We have to be mindful of this going into this matchup. Every game from this point onward is crucial. Or are you trusting your veteran receiver, somebody who's of course going to likely have his name on Raymond James Stadium by the end of his career? Do you trust him to just know that?
Personally, I think Mike Evans is going to wind up in Canton when it's all over.
Sure.
But I think that Mike Evans would remind himself. I think that suspension was a lesson learned for sure. I'm sure within the locker room, things are discussed that are appropriate. Let's keep our heads on straight. These two teams don't like each other to begin with, so it could be anyone at any time. I don't know what it is about these two teams when they get on the field, and I'm not even sure if the Saints and the Panthers have this kind of bitterness between them. The Falcons and the Saints. I don't know if that exists for whatever reason. I think it started. Obviously, New Orleans, putting together the streak of all the wins in the regular season over the Bucs over the years. And then Sean Payton egging it on, one of the best trash talkers ever. And so you put those together, and this became a game that the Bucs would circle on their calendar. To the Saints in their heyday not long ago, the Bucs were, man, it's just another game. Well, the Bucs, this was a big game for them. Now it's an even, and the league has picked up on this. The league is like, now it's on Monday Night Football, and they put it on Sunday Night Football last year here. I think that the Bucs are gonna have a red out. Is that right? Sunday, there's going to be. I think they're asking fans to wear red. Maybe the Bucs are going to wear all red. I don't know. This is bigger than a regular game, and you've got 5 and 6 versus 4 and 8. So what does that tell you? What the league views this as? Marshon Lattimore and Mike Evans.
Karen, you got your popcorn ready?
Yeah. I mean, to what you were asking about Byron Leftwich, if you think there's like a conversation, I don't think there's a conversation. I think it's more of like, you good? Like,
yep.
Like just an acknowledgement.
We need you tonight,
like there's
Mike.
not going to be a conversation. Yep. Like he's not going to, big brother him or, anything like that. Because I think he knows that Mike Evans learned his lesson. And honestly, I think that the way they're going to come together is just keep throwing it to Evans. Because that's the way that's going to talk for you.
Sure.
And put him in a situation to win any one-on-one with Lattimore and just keep going after it. So that's going to set the tone early.
Especially on the heels of a very subpar, I won't say subpar performance. It was subpar numbers for Evans. He was targeted 9 times.
2 catches.
He had the 2 catches against Cleveland. So obviously Cleveland took him out of the game, and the Saints will obviously try to do the same. They always try to do that. But nothing would please the Bucs more than to get into Evans 6 or 7 times
early.
It would definitely be a crowd pleaser. The fans at Raymond James are gonna roar every time Evans gets a look. But it's also great too. And we did not bring this up in our Week 12 recap and bring this back up on screen here for just a moment. 12 receptions for Chris Godwin.
Isn't that great?
Against Cleveland. It was so great to see a throwback performance from Chris Godwin. So even if there's a whole lot of chippy stuff going on the outside between Evans and Lattimore, Godwin's starting to look more like himself.
And Julio.
And Julio is starting to.
This is about the time when Godwin was supposed to be kind of getting back on the original schedule. Almost a year ago, they forecasted late October, November-ish for Godwin to be back.
This was the game he got hurt in last year.
And this is the scene of the crime, if you will. It was a national television game at Rainy J. The Bucs were playing awful. And it was a low tackle that injured Godwin's knee. And so it was, there's a lot, there's all kinds of storylines here.
So many.
For sure. But Godwin is so encouraging because for a while, I remember in the Pittsburgh game, any third down play was Godwin going to the first down marker and Brady trying to get it to him. And if it wasn't there, Brady was throwing it in the dirt. And now they're connecting. So especially on those third downs.
Yep.
As we look here at your Week 13 Fantasy Spotlight, we only got another 2.5, 3 or so minutes. So that brings us perfectly into, we're talking offense, and I am taking a week off. Because every time I pick somebody, I feel like I am a jinx.
You're the jinx?
I might be a jinx. So to the entire Buccaneers organization, I'm going to say, I'm just going to shut my mouth for a moment and let the Bucs insiders here do the predictions. Who do you like on your screen as far as this Monday Night Football matchup against the Saints at home? Who would like to go first this week?
Wow, I like this. I'll go first. Why not? I really would like to see the running game improve, but the Saints are a pretty good run team, especially against the Bucs. Cam Jordan and those guys keeping the pressure on. I'm gonna go with Tom Brady. This week. Tom Brady, because they had 0 points in this game last year at home against the Saints, and Tom Brady doesn't forget stuff like that. I think that, and coming off the last week's game, I'm sure he's ready to go. 2 touchdown passes for Brady in this game.
To Mike Evans, that's who I'm picking.
Ooh, there you go. There's the combo.
There it is.
I'm piggybacking on our talk about Marshon and that matchup. I think they're going to connect early, and I think that's going to be sort of the spark.
A statement game.
Yeah.
I love it. All right, folks, there you have it. Bucs Bonus, powered by 1-800-ASK-GARY. Of course, we're live right now on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. We also, of course, post the episodes to YouTube and Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. For our podcast listeners, hello. Hopefully you can hear us loud and clear wherever you are listening to Bucs Bonus from. We really appreciate you watching or listening. Of course, this is your weekly franchise as we delve into all things Buccaneers football with Dan and Karen. We've got a few days. We'll, of course, be watching the injury report, all of our stories that are coming from digital content producer Casey Sloan, everything that we have from a Buccaneers perspective, we will be posting to WFLA.com, the WFLA app, as we get closer to kickoff against the Saints. And of course, be on the lookout for Dan and Karen's reports on WFLA News Channel 8, your official Bucs station. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time on Bucs Bonus. And as always, go Bucs. Shout out Buckified Bert.